Okay, one of the most common complaints I see about Street Fighter 6's gameplay is I hate how Drive Rush eats my inputs. It's a complaint I've seen since day one and still see today from both beginners and pro players. You try to check a Drive Rush, the screen freezes, your input gets eaten, and you die. But that's not actually true. That's not really how this works. So, does Drive Rush really eat inputs? The answer is no. But also yes. But actually, sometimes is the correct answer. So this is actually quite a complicated topic, and today I want to put on my nerd glasses and break down exactly how the Drive Rush screen freeze works, and how that translates to complaints about inputs being eaten, so people can get a better understanding of what is happening underneath the hood. Before we get started though, I'd really appreciate if you guys could hit subscribe. If I find out any of you are watching this video without being subscribed, I will come to your house and I will clean all of your cast iron pans with soap and a steel brush. You have been warned. Okay, so I've broken this down today into 5 key bullet points to explain how the Drive Rush screen freeze actually works. So starting with number 1, Drive Rush doesn't ever eat moves from a neutral state. The way this works is that if you are in a neutral state, i.e. just like moving around, not already committed to any kind of attack, and you press a normal or a special or a super, it doesn't matter, the game will always buffer that attack so that it always comes out regardless of the Drive Rush freeze. You can actually test this really easily if you don't believe me. So all you have to do is go into training mode, record a dummy doing Drive Rush, and try and press a button at any point, and you will notice that it does not matter when I press the button, doesn't matter the timing, doesn't matter when I press it, the button will never ever get eaten, right? This idea that Drive Rush just inherently eats inputs is just completely wrong. So it doesn't matter if I tap the button for like 1 frame, or if I hold it down, it doesn't matter. Your attack will always come out if performed from a neutral state. So that's that, right? Case closed. Everyone was imagining things, it was all a dream. Well, no. So this is where things start to get a little bit more complicated. So number 2, attacks are buffered during the Drive Rush freeze, but directional inputs are not. So what this means is, although normals, specials, and supers are always buffered and will always come out during the Drive Rush screen freeze, if you press a direction during the Drive Rush freeze, that input is not buffered after the freeze. And the most important aspect of this is that that includes jumps, because jump is just a direction. So I'm sure you guys have experienced this one before. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. So in that example, do you see my inputs there? I pressed up forward into up during the Drive Rush freeze, and my character did not jump. He just stood perfectly still. So this is one of the cases where Drive Rush does actually eat your inputs. If you try and jump during the Drive Rush freeze, but then release jump before the Drive Rush freeze is over, the jump will not come out. We've definitely all experienced this. It can be very annoying when you try and like jump at your opponent just at the same time as they do like a random Drive Rush, and you end up just standing perfectly still and you get punched in the face. I think we've all experienced that one, and that one's valid and annoying. Incidentally, this is why this happens. I'm gonna validate the experience of Jamie players everywhere right now. This is a thing that's very common with any character that has a dive kick. So Jamie's dive kick is often performed like this. A lot of people will do up forward into half circle back kick because it's like a quite natural input. And a lot of Jamie players will have experienced this at some point in their life. That. I tried to do instant dive kick during the Drive Rush freeze. The half circle back plus kick does get buffered. So the up forward gets ignored, but the half circle back kick doesn't get ignored. And that's why I got grounded command grab, even though I tried to do instant dive kick. Anyway, moving on to number 3. Streamer, this doesn't make any sense. I have definitely had situations where I press an attack and that attack gets eaten by the Drive Rush freeze. How is that possible? So for this one, let me show you guys a clip from only a few days ago that came from Breezy Man, who is a Dhalsim player.
It ate my... If it ate... I just can't believe Dry Rush, dude. I just can't believe it.
So what happened there? We've got the replay up to show it. So what happens here is Breezy Man presses stand heavy punch, the big long stand fierce, and we've even got like the inputs up here on the right hand side zoomed in so you can see exactly what's happening. Breezy Man presses stand heavy punch, and then because Luke is far away, he makes the hard read that after this stand heavy punch is blocked, the Luke player is probably going to drive rush at him to close this distance, right? So what Breezy Man does is he inputs EX Fireball after the stand fierce to try and intercept the drive rush with a projectile. You'll notice this is a completely valid input. We got quarter circle forward plus 2 punches, but nothing happens. The EX Fireball does not come out. He just ends up standing still and he gets kicked in the face by Luke's drive rush heavy kick. So, is this a case of inputs being eaten? Not really, but sort of. This one is the sort of on the borderline. I have to explain this one. So, just a reminder, the first point that I made in this video was that a drive rush can never mess with your attack inputs when performed from a neutral state. I added that explicitly for this. So, in this example, and almost every instance I've ever seen of complaints about input eating, the input is eaten when trying to perform a move instantly after the recovery of the previous move. So Sim was not in a neutral state, he was recovering from stand heavy punch when this happened. And why does this happen? Well, technically, this isn't actually the drive rush freeze eating inputs. What is actually happening here is that Breezy Man is mistiming his EX Fireball because the drive rush freeze delayed the whole game by a few frames. So basically, when you try to perform an attack right as the previous one ends, the game has a small buffer window of a few frames to ensure that the next attack comes out immediately after the previous one is finished. But when you do a drive rush, the freeze basically freezes the entire game. So your muscle memory is pressing EX Fireball at what would normally be the reversal timing, but because the drive rush paused the game for just a brief moment, the reversal window shifted and you missed the reversal buffer because you were actually too early. The easiest way of proving this is that the inputs did not get eaten. Like, it's right here. You can see the inputs are right there. The inputs did not get eaten. They are on screen right now. The reason EX Fireball didn't come out is because by pausing the game for a split second, it messed with the timing of the reversal buffer, and you're actually too early. So this is why Sim stands still. Effectively, the same situation is happening here, as if you'd input your reversal like 10 or 15 frames before your previous move had recovered and missed the reversal buffer window. Technically, your inputs were not actually eaten here. The outcome is the same. You don't get the thing that you wanted to, but if we're being really technical, this is not inputs being eaten. This is the drive rush freeze messing with the specific window to hit reversals. The thing about this is that you might actually already be abusing this property of drive rush without even realizing it. So as an example, you might have seen some Oki setups that look like this. So right here, I've got Aki set to do a knockdown with heavy whip, and then afterwards, you do dash into drive rush forward heavy kick, right? This is a common Oki situation. Lots of characters have very similar things. You know, you get close to your opponent and then you do a drive rush just before they wake up. Now, what I'm going to do here is I am going to try and wake up EXDP to beat this setup. You notice anything strange? I did a valid EXDP input. You can see it right there. It's on the screen. I did my EXDP, but because the drive rush freeze shifted the reversal buffer forward by a few frames, I missed the reversal window and got nothing. This is exactly the same property as the previous clip with Dhalsim, just working in reverse. So if you've ever had a situation where you try and wake up with a reversal and it just straight up doesn't come out because of the drive rush freeze, that is why. Effectively, I'm hitting the EXDP reversal too early here because of the drive rush delaying the window. If you want to make your EXDP come out consistently here, you can mash. That is actually a legit option. If you want to just mash, you can guarantee it comes out regardless. Unless you play a charge character. If you play a charge character, you're actually kind of screwed here because once you've committed to like an EX flash kick, you can't then change your mind and go back and charge a second time. So this is actually really useful against characters like DJ and Guile. So I would say when people talk about like inputs being eaten, 99% of the time, this is the one that's responsible. So if you've ever experienced that feeling of like, I've just pressed a long range move, for example, and I suspect my opponent is going to try and drive rush at me. And so you press a second move during the recovery of the previous move to check the incoming drive rush and that doesn't come out. This is why. It's not because the game is swallowing the input, it's because the drive rush is messing with buffer windows. I don't think this is supposed to make people feel better that drive rush does this. I'm not trying to like be an apologist for drive rush. I think it is frustrating when you try and press a button and it doesn't happen. I just want people to have a better technical understanding of what's going on here, because I have seen people complain that drive rush just like on a functional level just swallows inputs. Like there's a lot of people, even pro players, who think that during the drive rush freeze, the game just negates inputs, which is not what's happening. So I'm not trying to like justify this. I just want people to have a better education, you know? It's much easier to critique a mechanic if you know how it actually works properly. I'm not excusing drive rush, I'm just explaining it. I think there's definitely valid aspects of the complaints. Certainly the jump one. I think the jump being eaten is very annoying. If you want to criticize something, the best thing you can do is actually know about it, you know? Know your enemy. So anyway, moving on to number 4. The drive rush freeze will not let you buffer multiple moves in sequence. So this is another thing that you probably have experienced at least once before. So I am going to check this drive rush that Aki is about to do with Ryu doing crouch medium kick into a Tatsu. So notice that I input crouch medium kick into Tatsu, but what actually happened was just Tatsu. And in that scenario, it did still hit the drive rush, but I'm sure you guys have all experienced this, where you try and do a normal buffered into a special on the incoming drive rush, and you just get the special. And sometimes that can get you killed as well. I think this is another one we've all experienced. So why does this happen? Well, it's because during any kind of freeze in this game, you cannot buffer multiple moves in sequence. You cannot tell the buffer, I want you to do this move and then this move after that. So basically, when time is frozen during the drive rush freeze, even though I pressed crouch medium kick into heavy Tatsu, what the game is registering is both crouch medium kick and heavy Tatsu are happening at the exact same time because the game is frozen during that state. And because it's registering both a normal and a special at the same time, it will give priority to the special, and that's why you get the special only rather than the normal cancelled into the special. It's also worth mentioning that this is not a unique property of the drive rush freeze. This property applies to any kind of screen freeze. This will happen if you try and perform a sequence during like a super freeze. This will even happen during hit stop. So let me just show you guys an example real quick. So something like Aki's punish counter stand heavy kick, this does a ton of hit stop, which effectively sort of freezes the game in a similar way. And I'm going to input stand heavy kick into light whip into level 3, right? I'm going to do this into this into this as a combo, and watch what happens. That. So notice how even though I input stand heavy kick into light whip into level 3, what actually happened there was just stand heavy kick into level 3, because effectively the game was reading both this and this at the same time during the hit stop of stand heavy kick, and rather than queuing them up one after the other, it just gives me the level 3. The level 3 takes priority over the special move. So even though this one's annoying, it is consistent behavior with how the rest of the game works. You just have to be a little bit careful. my final one here, number 5, is, and this is a complaint that I see very rarely, but I do still see it sometimes. The drive rush freeze turned my parry input into a normal. So they tried to press parry, and what came out was a normal, usually medium kick. And I just want to clear this one up real quick. So, just so you guys know, this was an actual issue, right? So when this game first came out, if you tried to parry during a drive rush freeze, the game would actually not let you buffer the parry, and you would get medium kick. This was actually in the game when it first dropped. But it's also worth following up that this was patched out a very long time ago. I think it was only a few months after the game came out, Capcom actually fixed this in one of the bug fix updates. So now parry is actually bufferable, and if you attempt to parry at any point during the drive rush freeze, you will always get parry. So I still see some people say that they're getting medium kick when they want to parry, but actually this was fixed a long time ago. It was a real issue, but it's not in the game anymore, so just thought I'd finish up with a bit of clarification on that one. Anyway, so that is how drive rush freezes work. So to answer the question of, does drive rush eat inputs? The answer is yes when it comes to jumps, no when it comes to attacks performed from a neutral state, and sort of but not really when it comes to reversals, but that's because the buffer gets shifted rather than the input being eaten, which is not the most elegant answer in the world, but hopefully this has been a bit educational, a bit informative, and gives you a better idea of like what is going on in this game when you try and press after a drive rush. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys all in the next video.